Hey everybody, Miss C again. More on our stained glass. This time we're talking about how to actually solder all of the pieces together. We've talked about cutting them, grinding them, getting the foil on them, etc. Now we need to talk about actually using the material that sticks them all together. It's called solder. It's spelled kind of funny, S-O-L-D-E-R or something like that. So it looks like solder, but it is solder. Soldering wire looks like this. It looks like regular aluminum wire, but it is designed in such a way that it will melt at particular temperatures. You will also use a soldering iron. Some people will say that this looks like a wood burning tool. It is very similar to a wood burning tool, but usually this one will get hotter or colder. This one is currently heating up. Sometimes they will have very specific stands to use. Since we don't, we're using a piece of scrap wood to use. You will also need flux. Looks like this. Use some kind of disposable brush because this is not good to mix with other things. When this brush gets nasty and we don't want to use it anymore, we can just throw it away and use a new one that is another cheapo brush. Right here is another spool of soldering wire. You can see it is just thinner. Depending on your comfort, you might use a thicker one like this or a thinner one like this, or depending on how thick you want your soldering lines to be, you could do that as well. Safety equipment. You can use an apron on you if you'd like. I don't particularly care for it in this particular case. You may also choose to use gloves, heavy duty gloves in particular, to help protect your hands from the heat. If you're doing it right, you should not be anywhere near the hot stuff, but sometimes it gets a little difficult to control some things and you might want someone's help holding something down or holding something up. So that person probably needs to wear gloves. For what I'm going to be showing you right now, I'm not going to use any because I like the better control that bare hands gives me. You will need a mask for your face. Not just a dust mask, not just something that will cover it, but something that will actually filter. If you have a proper filtering mask, that would be best. We also have better ventilation. You can see that our door back there is open because soldering wire does have lead in it. You don't want to breathe that stuff in. If you only do one project, totally fine, go with minimal protection. But if this is something you end up doing a lot, like this becomes your new hyperfixation out of your ADHD brain, then you will want to get yourself a really nice air filter, and you will want to do as much of this outside or near a very open window or door as you can, preferably with a little fan blowing on you. All right, so over here I have my piece prepped and ready to go. So you can see that I've foiled all of my pieces, and I've actually taken another piece of scrap wood and I've used some nails to hold this in place. Now I can't really wiggle around my pieces. I don't want them to move on me because it is very difficult to fix this once things start getting soldered together, to adjust the placement of them. So the very first thing we do is we actually take our soldering wire and we're going to tack our pieces together. That means basically just put a little bit of soldering, melted solder, between each of the pieces so they can't move around on each other. From there, we're going to be able to start taking out our nails and start putting the solder around. Generally, you want to start from the inside and work your way to the outside with your solder. Because this is such a small piece, we're going to start with just these little lines right here. And then we're going to move on to more of the outside edge after we are able to take away our nails. So here's our actual process. You're going to take flux. This is the stuff that helps our soldering wire stick and melt fast. So we're going to take this, open it up. Be aware that flux, while it will not hurt your skin in the long term, you do not want to ingest it. So once you start this process, before you can go do other things, you will need to wash your hands. So with this flux, all I'm doing is I'm going over all of my copper wire. I'm just kind of going pretty quickly. I'm not needing to go really fancy or anything like that. It just helps all of my metal melt quickly. I'm going to go ahead and set that down, cover this back up. Now my soldering iron has been heating up for a little while. I am going to mask up because we're about to start melting stuff. And I'm going to take my soldering wire, and you see I've unspooled a good amount of it. This helps keep my hand away from the heat because this is extremely hot. Yes, phone, I know. This guy is extremely hot. You'll see that I have this grip right here. Even if I touch this little rim of metal right there, that is also very hot. Obviously, the most heat is up here. Down here, it's a little bit less bad. But anyway, you don't want to touch yourself with it. If you do, immediately go run cold water over whatever you've burned and run it there for a good few minutes after you've unplugged this guy, and then give yourself a Band-Aid. It will give you a little blister, but it's not going to like burn you to death or anything. You're not going to light on fire, so don't panic, okay? All right, so as I said, we're gonna start by tacking some pieces down. So I'm gonna come over here, and one of the methods that I like to do is to just stick my wire down and then kind of dab this guy on top. Almost like I'm just squishing it, and it's going to melt fairly quickly. I am currently having to work around a lot of my nails, which is annoying. But here, those 5 spots will attach all 5 of my pieces together. Anywhere that you have glass touching another piece of glass, you want to put a little tack mark. All right, but now I can take away some of these inner ones, and you can see a little bit better. I'm gonna have a little bit more wiggle room now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna essentially kind of do that same thing. I'm going to put my wire down, and I'm going to jump on it with a little bit of this. And you can see it's quite lumpy to start, but that's fine because I can take this and I can slowly move over my front and it will all melt together like so. I'm gonna do the same thing again right here. Just kind of tap down, and then run over the whole thing like so. Tap down, and run over the whole thing. I'm going to repeat this on this side to start, and then on the back side. Don't be freaked out if any of your pieces bubble, if the flux boils a little bit and a little bit of your solder ends up on your glass. As soon as it cools down, it will pop right off the glass. The reason you had to put copper around your piece of glass is because the solder does not stick to the glass. So if it pops over there, once it's cooled off a little bit, you can just flick it off. It'll be fine. All right, just a little bit more on this side. It is best to try and work quickly, but not so fast that you have no control. I am trying to make sure that all of my copper is covered and I don't have any holes in my copper, which I will have to double check again later. All right, setting that down to make sure. All right, so all of this side is together. So I'm gonna go ahead and take out all the rest of my nails, put them in whatever nail container I got them out of. For my classroom, it's actually in the closet. No, it's over here. Someone forgot to put it away, probably me. Let's be real. Ka-fling. All right, so one side is together, like so. Now I'm going to do the same to the other side. This side I do not need to tack down because the other side is holding it all together. I don't need to hold the nails in or anything like that. This is already kind of in place. So now I'm just gonna do the same thing again with my soldering as I did on the first side. All right, so I already made a mistake. I forgot to add flux to this side of my piece before I started trying to solder. And you can see that this did not want to stick at all. So I'm just gonna come in and add that really quick, and then I can continue on with my way of getting that done. Again, just gonna add some of this flux. Again, it's just like this liquid that can go all the way around. Bloop, 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 bloop. All right, so now I have both the back side and the front side, whichever I choose to be which, kind of soldered together that way. I still need to go around the edges, which I will need a person's help for. So I will be filming that as soon as I find an assistant. It is better to have a little mechanical help, like some kind of clamp that is attached. You can find them for jewelry makers, but we don't have those in here. So we're going with the good old helper situation. And that person will help hold my piece on end as I get around the outsides. So whenever I get assistant help, then we will finish this up. All right, so I have gotten a hand of assistance. Haha. Round of applause for the hand. All right. I've also attached a little bit of a loop wire in here with some extra pieces of foil. I'm gonna see if this works to hold this on so I can make a little hanging loop. It might not hold on forever, so we're just gonna make that as a test and see what happens. All right, so I did add a little bit more flux to my side so I didn't repeat my mistake from earlier. I've got my wire coming out this way. And I'm gonna basically do, ow, burned myself a little bit. I'm gonna do exactly the same thing I did before, where I'm just kind of pressing and pulling my solder along. Okay. Hey, come on. Melt all the way on there, please. That might not work. I wanted it to so bad to make like a cool thing work in cool ways, but it might not. All right, so something that you might notice as I'm doing this is that it might drip onto the rest of my glass. Again, the solder will not stick, so that's going to be fine. All right, I'm going to do this side right. All right, so now we're going to need to twist it. So I'm going to turn it that way. Hold, please. There we go. Come on, heat up. Every once in a while, it just decides that it doesn't want to have it be hot. I'm probably gonna have to redo this whole tip, but that's a problem for later me. All right, we're gonna twist again. All right, so you can see these little pieces that were dripped on can just be peeled off for the most part. If they are a little bit attached, you can always use a little bit of a wire cutter to do that. What I found when I was working was that for whatever reason, it was working a little bit better if I came around and did the edges from the top first and then came around to the sides. But the last thing I did was I just kind of smoothed everything out with my guy. He's unplugged now. Now the last steps are to wash him off. We still have this Flux stuff on him. But just a little bit of soapy water rinsed in a sink will work to get that cleaned up. If you are like me and you have a little bit of Sharpie numbers on there still, a little bit of rubbing alcohol will wipe those off. You can see that my little experiment with the little wire loop did not work, and I'm so sad. So I'll have to figure out a way to get some wire on there, or to otherwise attach wire in some other way, maybe with a little bit of soldering wire, but I'll figure that out another time. So yeah, once I give this a little bath and let him dry off, he will be all done. Yay! Yay!